toilet?
They have got one on there.
Yeah, they did say they have toilet. Okay, now for sure. To watch and I even check the other bit for them. We're just going back for it,
Yeah. Has everyone got torches?
Yes.
Yeah. If you haven't got torches, there's going to be hopefully there's going to be quite a few of us with torches. Otherwise, everyone in high-vis should have a torch, and just stick by us. There are only a few places that are complete darkness, and you quickly get around to an area with lighting anyway, so you're not going to be too far away from the source of light. Right, safety demonstration. Basically, there are areas around the tunnels with trip hazards. We will point them out where they come along, but please be aware of where you're stepping, especially in the dark. There are some areas that have slippery floors. Once again, we'll try and point them out. Please don't go running around. You may slip, and obviously you may injure yourself. We have first aiders, so we can do kind of immediate first aid, but obviously if there's anything more serious, then we'll stop the tour. We'll stop the tour anyway. And we will get emergency services if required. If that is the case, then it's going to be an all stop on the open day, and we'll continue if possible. Obviously, we need people's safety to come first. There's minimal risk of fire because the majority of things are damp. However, if there is a fire, please once again let someone know. If we haven't seen it, let a volunteer know, and we will get you out as quickly and safely as possible. And once again, we will contact the emergency services. There is debris in the older tunnels, so once again, please be aware of where you're stepping. Again, we will try and notify you of anything that may be. Now, there's bits of mould on lower ground, on the curbs and stuff. As long as you're not wiping it, doing smiley faces or licking it, you're pretty much fine. But wandering past it, you're not going to be issued. There's the areas that we're going to, it's pretty much just dry rot. There are other areas in the complex that we don't allow people to go to with other spore areas, but they are sectioned off so no one can go there. When we are going around, my name is Mike, this is Russ. Russ will be doing the other tour. You're not all going around together, you will be split into two. We've got Cameron, Shez and Doug, and they will all be backing the tours as well, so no one wanders off or gets lost. We've got your tags, so hopefully we won't forget anyone at the end of the day. If there are any questions throughout the tour, please, not wearing a hard hat for it, but you got that part of the government shadow factory scheme. Now, a shadow factory was basically a factory that was underground. So if there was a bombing raid above, the factory could continue to manufacture goods, and they didn't have to go into an air raid shelter, because technically this is an air raid shelter. Whereas other factories in cities, they would have to stop production, go into their air raid shelter. If the factory was bombed above, then obviously they would have to fix everything or go to a separate location. So a shadow factory was basically made so military machinery, military vehicles and different complexes were able to continue, if required, 24/7. That said, Drakelow wasn't used throughout the night. It was only used during the day. So it took 2,000 workers around 12 months to get the first machinery in, and then about 18 months to complete the whole complex. And they blasted from the top down, and then they used pneumatic drills and picks to actually shape off the complex. And you can still see the lines of the pneumatic drills and the picks that they used. Now, the actual spoil, there was 3.5 million cubic feet of sandstone removed and 1.5 million cubic feet of soil removed. And a lot of people say, well, where did it go? Now, depending on which way you came, if you came this way along, you would have seen a caravan site on your left-hand side. Now, originally there was a bit more of a dip going on in there, so they dumped quite a lot of it in there. If you turn right and go more towards Kimber, just on your left-hand side, there's still a spoil heap between two houses, but a lot more of it went to the top of the complex, and that was all removed during the war, which was probably to do with construction works because it was sand, so it could be used for various different projects. Now, for the war, the Austin Rover Company came down here and they produced parts for the Hercules and Pegasus engines. Now, they didn't actually about that high. From around the complex. Right then, let's turn this on. Right then, so some people have asked me previously, why is this paper the gallery?
That's why I tried to jump this board on. It's true though. Actually, just saying, the whole museum, like the paper. Right then, let's turn this on. Right then, so some people have asked me previously, why is this paper want to distract you? So you could carry on with your work. If your mate Dave was wandering past going to run a brew, you wouldn't have seen them, so you would have carried on going, carried on working. Now, during the Cold War, from the 1960s all the way through, these were male dormitories. Behind you into the darkness, they're the female dormitories. Now, what we're going to do here, they are still single beds, so you still get the idea. And then when we go through there, we're just going to go a little bit further on, and I'll take you through the older complex. Okay, follow me.
see the silver ones that you saw on the grey start there, the new filtration and the air circulation system there. Now we're going to walk through the wall like ghosts, and on the other side there is a very small room which was the old strong room in World War II that kept the keys and the
Oh, that? That's some turkey. What, that little board painting? Oh, is that paint? That's amazing. It's well pretty.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Is it paint? Is it where roots have been growing and then they've...
So they had enough of the day, but obviously the time
Put a lot on the roots.
yeah.
Oh, some moves! Well, it's like the train's gone down to the toilet. My goodness. Got a very hand dry. Oh, they're taking off. Oh, that's showers. Oh, they're gone.
Right, the area that we're in now used to be, in World War II, used to be a workshop area. So the workshops basically went from that pillar there, came down in this area here, all the way around and to the other side as well. During the 1960s, so the regional seat of government, once again these were male dormitories. In the 1980s, it was mothballed, it wasn't used at all, it was brick.
That's like something out of like... I mean, down here, building.
Basically anyone from a control
part of the CMD piece camp outside. We probably have a background saying VIPs allowed in here, you're not allowed in here, it's not VIP. It's not much of a privilege being down here, it's a necessity. If you're down here, you know the effects people into the place and all the provisions and everything as well. Right then, so we are tunnel 4 entrance. So beyond the 28-week Slater van is a double set door there. You'll see that it's a metal door. Now throughout the whole of the complex's life until it was sold, that was a wooden door. Just like the original one which is over there on the wall. Now the wooden one is slightly lined with metal, but you would still think, well, hold on a minute, nuclear blast, that's not really going to help. But in the early 1960s, when the nuclear bomb hadn't been developed too much, the blast... Can you not get in the van, please? The blast would have only pretty much gone to... If you bombed Birmingham, it would have been, say, Dudley, Wolverhampton areas. It wouldn't have got here. In the 1980s, when they cocooned themselves in the regional government headquarters, the blast would have gone past Drakelow and carried role reversed. Now you see, just in this little gap here, there are some slots. That's where you would have put your cards when you were leaving the complex during World War II. And then this was a timekeeping office, so when you came to work, you would have taken your card out, gone through, put your cards in over there at the in bit. Haven't got the slots, but that's where it is. And then obviously when you leave, it was mainly a skeleton crew apart from exercises, but when they used exercises, they actually brought the food in. So they didn't actually cook food down here, they had food brought in for them. For the 1980s, in regards to the security man wanting to make something to eat, he used a little griddle to make some toast, and that was about it, and a kettle. Everything else was untouched at that stage. Now you will need your torches going through to the kitchen area, and the kitchen area is probably the most trip hazard area of the whole complex. So once again, please be aware of where you're treading. Okay? Okay, follow me. Right then, so if you're all, depending on where you're standing, you all have a quick look over here. We've got a dough mixer, and then the garden of kitchen.
Down here. So, just in the nuclear, what is this tool then?
work there, eat there, and then everyone who used to make machinery parts used to eat here. You would have never had someone from an office come and eat with your machinery workers, or especially someone which was removed for safety. In the early 2000s it was assessed, and some areas were coming down. Fortunately, in the other areas we carry on assessing them, and it's not bad. We obviously, if it comes to a point where things are falling down, then we will remove it, but we haven't got to that stage yet, fortunately. But you will be able to see how high the main tunnels are, and the reason for that is Sir Alexander Gibb. He designs the main tunnels, so if they were bombed, they would be more rigid in an A-frame design compared to the lower tunnels of what we've got here, where they are low. So when we walk out, you can see the difference of this tunnel here, get a lot higher. Now obviously that is to fit an air duct in as well, but there is a more safety design of it as well. So if you'd like to follow me, we're going to go for a bit of a walk as well. Up to the top. So if you go on our website, the best plan is if you go on the Shadow Factory tab, which is the World War II bit, then that will show what is the whole area that was used. And then you go on the wall even, from 1957, it's better than Dave was here. There's some sketches, from sketches all the way through to Coloured Tiger. So it's a bit of a view of missing the outside, albeit there's no tigers roaming around Worcestershire or Wild Forest or anything, but you get the idea. So if you'd like to come in, you follow me.
This is the summer I keep talking about. Yeah. See how much the boy is Alex says, Alex, pick at this stuff.
And the ability to turn it into anything 400 quid on a gun,
No.
which they cost a lot.
Yeah.
And I think if anything, you might have to go to a certain amount of events before you get a license to be able to buy a gun, because they're so realistic. And you need a reason to transport it, otherwise the police will literally break down. It's a license. I know, it's, if anything, the airsoft were the people who got me in the 90s, and not very far off after that, thieves came in and stripped the cable all the way up to the substation, which is the why we can't just connect it again. We need a heck of a lot to put back in, which is why it would cost between £45,000 and £60,000 to do it. So we have 2 backup generators which were installed in the 1980s. The issue with one of them is the radiator room is in its own protective bunker outside. Someone broke into that, cut one of the radiators unbeknownst to us, and the first generator that we did use seized up. So now we've put an alarm system on the second generator, so if any of the levels drop, we know an audible alarm, which you can hear throughout the regional government headquarters, so you can leg it over and switch systems off. And there is a visual alarm as well. And we've also put a massive tree trunk outside the door of the radiator room outside, so people can't get into that. But we're literally on a last bit of power. And it's all fed by diesel, and we bring in diesel drums and we pump it into the reserve tank up at the top.
After that as well.
But, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go into the darkness, we're going to turn around the corner, and then we're going to go into the Cold War area, back into the more fluorescent lighting, the daylight lighting. Any other questions? No? You're going to need your torches?
So the cabling out to the substation is cocked up, is it?
Yes, yeah.
Lovely.
It was about this big.
So when did they put that?
In the early 2000s.
So they'll take it from the railways, like live.
The good thing is it costs less money now. They get less money for it, so it's less popular. It's less of a. That's it. We're not tied to this much anymore.
Did they? On the railway. Mary Helen. It's a horrible place. I like profits.
Right then, welcome back. Sorry. Oh, it's nice. Welcome back to the Cold War. You will have noticed above you that these lampshades look relatively new. They are. The older ones are kind of piled down there. They're a lot wider and a lot longer, but we can't get the lamps for them. They're just too long. So we thought, we need to get new lampshades. But I went and had a look, and just off tunnel 4, they were all in a nice mouldy but nice cardboard box. So they are original to Drakelow, but they're just a little bit smaller. The lamps inside of them, they're new, but everything else is original to Drakelow, so that's very nice. And Russ did that, so the other tour guide, he put them up. Now you'll hear the air conditioning. You can actually feel it working now. It's at about 70% at the moment. We need to gas a little bit more of it, but everything else is working, and once we get that gas, then it'll be 100% working, and then the flow of water that's been dragged out will make a lot of difference. At the moment, it's something like 3 litres every 15 minutes. It's quite a good rate, and that's whatever, over 12 hours or something. That's quite a lot. Does it smell less damp? Yes.
Yeah, just when we came in from that tunnel into here, it just...
Yeah, that'll be it. And the reason for the double doors is before we had flaps, which like going into a fridge in a supermarket flaps, and it did alright, but it just wasn't effective. In the 1980s, that was bricked up, so they really didn't have any issues of having the efficiency of the air conditioning unit. They just bricked up the areas they didn't need. Obviously, we need people to be able to go to and from, so we've got doors in places, and hopefully that will just make it so we're not pulling in the warm air of the older complex into the regional headquarters, which is what we're going to be doing for the museum. Once we put in doors everywhere and sealed it all off, then it's just going to become even more efficient as well. Right, through there, which we're not going into, but that's the old BBC room. It's been gutted. You've seen the radio control unit, which was in the second room on the right-hand side when you walked in. Now that unit was donated by BBC Radio Shropshire. We have other radio units that we're going to be putting into this room and kitting out. The producer's room will be kitted out as well. We're just drying it at the moment, making sure any equipment we put in there is not going to become faulty as well. So that's the reason why we're not going in there, because it is just a empty room. So what we're going to do instead, we're going to take you through here, which is the basically it's my little baby of the museum. So what I wanted to do is bring a bit of the shadow factory back into the museum itself. And the lampshades that are in there are original to Drakelow. They've been reconditioned by our volunteers. The lamps, the majority of them are from America because we can't access 60-watt bulbs here anymore. Might be able to do when we get out of the EU eventually. But we have to ship them in through America. There is one in there that's from the kitchen, the robot kitchen, and it still works because we ran out of them from America. Chris, the engineer, said, well, don't get one for the kitchen, it might work. But it does work, so we've got a government-issued one that's still running in there. The machinery was donated to us by the Black Country Livery Museum. 99% of it is from the World War II era. There's a big machine on the left-hand side, which isn't, but it looks like it is. So we have it, just free, why not? So we would like to get them on plinths. We'll have some lower down for children, school children, some higher up for adults. We want to educate everyone as good as we possibly can. So feel free to come through and take some pictures, and I'll meet you at the bottom.
control unit handles 400 volts, and if you open the panels and stick a finger in and touch a 400 volt cable, then there's pretty much no coming back from it. It's pretty much an instant death. So you basically have to unscrew stuff, but just to have a no risk of that, if you take pictures from the table and leave it at there, that would be grand. You don't want to be carrying people off in a ash bag. So if you'd like to follow me, when you go over to the generator room, there's a little bit of a lift on the floor, so please be aware of where you are placing your feet.
You go in there? No. Oh, right.
Provides 147 kilowatts of power, which is enough to light up everything that you've seen already, power the air conditioning unit over there, albeit it's not full capacity yet, but it will be soon, and it will be able to power quite a bit more as well. Ideally, we'd like to get the electrics up and running, but getting to that 4 to 5 grand is quite a steep step up, so sooner or later. What we're going to do now is we're going to go over to the regional government headquarters canteen. It's a tiled floor, it's not slippery today, sometimes it is, but when you go from the tiled floor to the carpet, there's a brick step about that much. Just be aware of it so people don't see it and they go down and give them a bit of a foot. So feel free to have a look at the units there. It's not very interesting, it's not as interesting as the old one. And then we the little bit, just a little bit beyond. Any question? Slowly visible.
We should really smack.
What?
We should smack.
But they also might be coming back because as a result of Drakelow, 5 people did die. 3 people were buried buried in a roof collapse during construction, although they died at hospital. One gentleman who was part of the construction, they walked in and then they came out, and some of them rode the conveyor belts out. It was quite a long distance to walk. Some of them rode the conveyor belts out. Unfortunately, one of them got mangled in the conveyor belt. And a lady after construction, so during Austin Road works, she was hit by a truck and she died of her injuries. So there's related injuries. There's at least that one guy who died on the conveyor belt inside the complex. I think the lady died outside the compound. So there's possibilities there of paranormal. People do come from all over the country for here, paranormal groups from all over the country. I think we're in the top 5 locations in the UK. As I say, it might be because we're such a vast complex, but it might be because things are seen. The only thing I've seen is I was walking down one of those concrete tunnel thingies, and then it went round to the left and it's still a concrete tunnel thingy, so there's no way of disappearing off. There's a mouse in front of me. I was only a metre away from it, went round the corner and disappeared. Ghost mouse. I can't run too fast in that second of me going around the corner and disappearing. So ghost mouse. So yeah, that's the only thing I've seen, which is probably a good thing because I would never come back here again if I saw a ghost. So I'm quite happy about it. Now when we go through the door here, immediately on your right hand side there is a picture taken in World War II, which I told you about in Tunnel 3, of them all set up, posed there. So if you have a look at that and then imagine what you see when you're walking through the older complex of where all the machinery would have been, and then you can get the atmosphere there, and then we'll have a look at all the other pictures. So you can see that these 5 people have been posed. Most of them are smiling apart from him. He doesn't want to be there, does he? And then you can see the people in the background, and in the posed picture they are still working, they're moving a little bit. Now is the caravan park. So this is another version down here. You can also see rock houses up here, cave houses. Now they are still there. We've got them fenced off at the moment because they're not in the best of conditions, but they do have, one of them has a stove in, one of them has pretty much just a small amount of tile floor. If we get to a stage where we've renovated the bunker to a point where we can allow people in as a museum, ideally we would like to do a nature walk up to the top to the rock houses, and that will be our second renovation project. This is a big renovation project, that's a little bit less, but that's maybe something that we will get the National Trust involved in because they've got the one down in Kimber and they're people with the most knowledge to do that. Now here you can see the conveyor belts that the gentleman unfortunately died on. I think he died on the one that came out of Tunnel 1, not Tunnel 2. That's Tunnel 4, Tunnel 3, Tunnel 2. The reason we got to Tunnel 4 first was because they kitted out Tunnel 1 first, which is the one furthest away, which is why it's called Tunnel 1, and you don't get to Tunnel 1 this way. Now, you can see here that the church and schoolhouse is in relatively good condition, although that house there has gone downhill very quickly. A whole bedroom like this would just be astronomical. So, ideally, we'd like to source them from somewhere, if someone is donating them anywhere, but imagine 3 rooms like this, plus all the male dormitories would have had these bunk beds in as well. This here is the original World War II tannoy system. So this was what gave out the news and weather reports, the music and the general tannoy announcements. We would like to get some 1940s music piped around the place, communications, and makes them secret. So the Russians can't decipher, or makes it hard for the Russians to decipher what's going on. And then that's the MSX system, which is pretty much goes with that hand in hand.
this is stage, not quite, somewhat for me, the last tour of opened in naughty people. Right, in here is the doctor's surgery. Before you all disappear down it, that's what everyone has done, I'll just talk to you a little bit about it. Now the doctor's surgery is the only room in the whole of the complex that stayed the same use. So it's doctor's surgery from World War II all the way through to the Cold War. The issue is if you hurt yourself in the Cold War, so let's say the regional government headquarters, if you sprained yourself, fine, sick bays, they'll sort you out. If you ran around the corner, tripped, bone went through the leg. Now the issue with that is, it's likely, if you're in here, that a nuclear bomb's gone off in Birmingham or wherever. So the hospitals outside are going to be overrun, if not destroyed. They're not likely to be able to get an ambulance to you. You've signed the Official Secrets Act, so you can't be sent outside and risk being captured. So a gentleman told me who would have worked in the regional government headquarters up in the northeast, he said if something like this happened, you would have been taken out and shot. So and we're not that far away from possibly another Cold War situation because we're building up our forces in Eastern Europe and we're pissing off the Russians. If you get to a stage where you do get into a nuclear bunker, just shuffle everywhere, just go walk really slow. But feel free to go down, as I say, sick bays on your right, doctor's surgery straight ahead, tiled floor to brush away the blood, obviously. But have a go down there, it doesn't go anywhere, so you just come back from there and then we will go from there.
Go.
It's better than I said it was.
If it was a waiting room, I would have liked that.
Yeah.
Right then, just above me is the station clock. Hasn't landed on anyone's head yet, but hey, you never know. It spent the majority, well, it originally was in Tunnel 1, and then it spent the majority of its time after the war on the floor just off Tunnel 4, and then we rescued it and we put it up there, and it's staying in relatively good condition. I appreciate there's no glass, and there's part of glass on this side, but the one that's currently up in Tunnel 4, that's in a pretty bad state. So we've kind of rescued it and put it up there. Would be nice to get it working, but I kind of like it frozen in time, so that's that. Station clock, and that was obviously to tell you that you just have to have your lunch and go home. This is the end of the tour. Are there any questions before you all ask me outside? No? Thank you very much for coming. There is a donations box on the other side of the security club, so when you put your tags in, feel free to leave a donation to renovation money. There's also a DVD which has various, it's got an interview with Mary Cartwright, who used to work here. It's got extended walks around the complex, and it's got the 1992 video of the gentleman who came back on his last shift while it was still classified, and there's other work party videos that we did as volunteers as well. That's £15. Once again, you don't have to buy it, it's just there. And then there's key rings as well, and leather book page dividers as well. But thank you very much for your time. When we do go out, when you take your hats off, don't forget to take your hats off. When you give your tags in, if you go to the left of the security hut, there's a decontamination shower. Now there is a pull handle, the shower doesn't work, so you're not going to get wet, but please don't yank the handle because it's rudimentally held on and you're just going to bend the pin. So please don't touch the handle, but you can go through it, you can kind of experience how you would if you went through. If you came in, if you actually had to come in, take your clothes off, there was a concrete bin, there still is the concrete bin there just after the shower, where you would have put your clothes, and there's a metal lid, and then you would have gone through, had your shower, and then would have given you your work clothes that you would have stayed in here from. So you would have had to get rid of all your Adidas stuff, all that. Well, your shirts and stuff like that. So if you'd like to follow me, thank you very much for coming on.
I haven't got anything now. Why, what do you need? Yeah, I ain't got anything.
I've got about 20 pence on cash.
I ain't got out.